To be honest, I was a little bit surprised when we saw the reporting. Like, I can't remember if it was Pete Thamel, if it was the Athletic article, where it was termed like the Big 12 and San Diego State just have not made them each
Yeah.
other a priority really in all of this. And I'm more surprised just from the Big 12 side of it, sensing here a little bit like some blood in the water with the June 30th deadline coming up, that maybe they would come in and ramp up some of the talks with San Diego State here to try and see if they can get in there. What was your reaction to that? Were you taken aback by that at all, that the Big 12 wasn't pushing harder?
I'm glad you mentioned it, John, because my general theory in this, as someone that has been consumed by realignment for 20 years, I've always found it fascinating. A lot of college football fans, college athletic fans have. I mean, I remember the Syracuse days of movement in like the AAC and then, or the ACC, and then like what transpired with Maryland and Rutgers and like Nebraska's. I mean, this has been going on. You know, if you love this sport, if you follow the sport, it's been going on. What I would say, what I've noticed in conference realignment, even as recently as 2 years ago, when the AAC kind of made overtures out west to like the San Diego States and the Boise States, even like a Colorado State and Air Force. What happens is conferences don't want no's. I think that really shows weakness when a conference gets a quote unquote no, or even a perceived no. So I think it's like it takes two to tango. I think it's very easy for the Big 12 to say it's not really our priority. I think it's also works for San Diego State to say it's not our priority until it is. Until those two lock horns at the 11th hour, I think it can happen in 20 minutes, where all of a sudden it becomes a necessity. One option is presented that's better than another. Chairs are moving, and you got to sit in chairs. I don't think the Big 12 formally invites San Diego State until they know San Diego State is formally a yes. Until then, there's no invitation. And that's where I would say things stand from outside. I think San Diego State is in good footing with both the Pac 12 and the Big 12. From the way I see it, the advantages that they could provide to both of the leagues, I think they're advantageous potentially for both of the leagues. But I could see, I get the nuance and the statements and the back and forth there, because I think until you have two yeses, you have two nos, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that's a very good point and very poignant when it comes to realignment. Um, okay, so let's talk about San Diego State in general here. Well, actually, one more on the realignment front, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking of this now. I saw this mentioned in a Wilner article the other day and just briefly brought up. I wouldn't think that this would happen, but has there been any discussion around there about like if the invite comes from the Pac-12, whether or not it would be at a full revenue share, or if you would have to take a reduced share for a little while in the Pac-12?
There's been a ton of discussion locally about San Diego State and like what they would receive from a power league. You've even seen public quotes if you've read like the San Diego Union Tribune, or maybe even in some national articles, maybe something that Dennis Dodd has written in the last 6 months. He's done some detailing of San Diego State. I think the president, Adela De La Torre, and the athletic director, JD Wicker, have both been on the record saying that not only is San Diego State deserving of a Power Five league, they're deserving of, if not a full share, close to a full share. And they've said it for a number of different reasons. I mean, obviously, it benefits San Diego State, its athletics, and its university to get to a full share. They've made an interesting argument, which I tend to agree with, which is if you're going to bring a team into a league, don't you want the team to do the work necessary to benefit the league? Is it of benefit to the Big 12 in a hypothetical situation to bring any program in, San Diego State or otherwise, and put them at an inherent disadvantage and put them kind of at the bottom of the rung and make them go, quote unquote, earn it? Same thing with the Pac 12. You could argue that the Pac 12 would be less apt to do that because they're going to need the league overall to be propped. There's a benefit to have 10, 11, 12 programs of value as opposed to half of the league of value. I think the Big 12 and Brett Yormark have done a very good job in propping up the league, not a program. It's not about Kansas State. It's about the entirety of the Big 12 and the possibility that, you know, 1 year Kansas State could have a good basketball season. The next year it could be Iowa State. Same thing in football. I think that's really worked well for the Big 12. So I think the full share, well, of course, it benefits any program. I think it potentially benefits a league as well. And that's an argument that San Diego State has made. So it'll be interesting. I mean, very rarely, I haven't done the deep dive on this, but it's rare to get the full share immediately. You know, I mean, obviously, an SC and UCLA are going to get that with the Big Ten because of their value, but there's a number of examples, Utah, TCU, others that, you know, takes time to get that full share.
Yeah, you're right. That seems like it has been kind of standard practice with the run to the title game in basketball. And I mean, look, that's been a great basketball program for a while now. But how much has that really infused some extra momentum just in this push and this case to become a Power Five athletic department now?
Yeah, I think I put it this way. It's like I would have argued that if San Diego State lost their first round game to the College of Charleston, they should still be included in realignment and Power Five expansion, because I don't think it's as simple as one NCAA tournament, one game, even one run. With that being said, I think what's happened is there's this narrative that, how can you not include them now? That's played out a little bit. So that's a credit to what they obviously did this past March. It was an incredible run. San Diego was over the moon about it. I mean, San Diego is a very interesting market. It's the eighth largest city in the country. It's a top 30 DMA, but it's the eighth largest city. You say, well, how's that possible? Well, Tijuana's to the south. If you had San Diego and Tijuana as one American city, like the Twin Cities, you're talking about, third, fourth TV market in the country. You're talking about millions and millions of households. Also, San Diego doesn't get credit for Orange County, where Los Angeles County does. So the county to the north of San Diego is Orange County in the DMA, and that's an LA DMA, not San Diego. And then, of course, to the east is desert, and to the west is ocean. So San Diego is a massive city, but is quote unquote landlocked. Therefore, the DMA doesn't make it look as big as it really is. It's the second biggest city in California, not San Francisco. It's the second biggest city in California to Los Angeles. So it's a great market, and they were over the moon about San Diego State's run. And I think that if you've been paying attention, San Diego State's had an amazing basketball program for 25 years. They were just waiting for that run, and it can be hard, right? It can be hard to get to a Final Four, as a lot of programs know, but getting to a Final Four in a national championship game, I think, is just kind of icing on the cake for San Diego State. And I thought they were well positioned previously. Maybe it better enhances their positioning publicly. But I think either way, they're in a good spot.
I know you touched on this briefly, but just personally, I'm curious, what are the dynamics of fandom there for college sports fans, or just the sports fan in general now? Obviously, with the Chargers unfortunately gone out of there and leaving a little bit of a vacuum there, like has San Diego State picked up some steam? Are there more like SC, UCLA? Like how do things break down there from college sports standpoint?
I think it's an amazing question, because I think it's the most understood sports market in the country. There are obviously a lot of transplants. In addition to that, you have great fandom in general. San Diego State is a huge university with hundreds of thousands of alumni within San Diego County, Orange County, and Los Angeles County. And there's this perception, which I think is a false narrative, that, well, San Diego is Pac-12 country in the old Pac-12. You don't need San Diego State because you have SC and UCLA. That's a narrative that's played out here for 40 years. There's also the flip to that coin, which is SC and UCLA would never in a million years let San Diego State in the league, because they know it's a sleeping giant situation because of the talent that's come out of San Diego County. I mean, you're talking about the Alex Smiths and the Reggie Bushes. There's been unbelievable college football talent in San Diego County, Orange County, Los Angeles County. I mean, that is really maybe also one of those areas that's completely, isn't reported as much as it should be. I mean, to not have a foothold in Southern California, and if you have an opportunity to have a foothold in Southern California, you're opening up recruiting avenues for programs that previously didn't exist or need those avenues. University of Utah, Oregon, Washington, right? They routinely recruit in Southern California. Without SC and UCLA, how does it impact them? But I think San Diego is a great sports city. I think, look at the Padres. They're 35 and 39. They're like leading baseball in attendance. They have a record number of sellouts this year. The support's been incredible. San Diego State has gotten good support of their football program for a number of years, and they've only recently in the last 15 years been, top 25 caliber program. But Marshall Faulk in its history finished second in a Heisman. They've drawn very well in the 90s and the 2000s. I think they'll draw at Snapdragon Stadium, and they certainly will if they get into a Power 5 league. And then San Diego State basketball is like the NBA team of San Diego. I mean, they're massively popular. The bars were incredible throughout the NCAA tournament. People are very familiar with all the comings and goings. They follow it very closely, very comparably to the Padres, I would say, San Diego State basketball. So I just think there's this narrative that, San Diego State doesn't really matter in the grand scheme in Southern California because it doesn't even rate in San Diego County. I've seen some of those numbers. None of it is accurate. I mean, San Diego State rates in the county. They have regional appeal. And I think when presented with opportunities to play programs with more regional and national, with more recognition regionally and nationally, that's going to benefit San Diego State as well. Obviously, when San Diego State's playing Wyoming in a football game, that's not the same TV rating as when San Diego State's going to play Oregon. So I think you need to allow that situation to play out as well.
Well, to close, I mean, we've covered a decent amount of this ground already here, but as somebody who does this and has advocated for a long time for, I mean, I think it's clear San Diego State is the number one far and away option from the group of five right now that's out there. But what's the elevator pitch? If you're talking to someone, what's the elevator pitch for San Diego State as a deserving Power Five athletic program, athletic department right now?
The funny thing about realignment is it has nothing to do with who deserves or earns anything, which is incredible, because if it did, if this was a relegation system like European soccer, San Diego State would have been in the Power Five a long time ago. You've seen the stat on social media. Since 2009, their combined football and men's basketball winning percentage is tops in FBS, higher than Ohio State, higher than Oregon. Name the program. And of course, their basketball program deserves a lot of credit there. That's by 3/4 of the games, but they've had 5-10 win seasons since 2015 in football as well. They won 12 games 2 years ago in football. So there's that. They've earned it on field and they've invested. I mean, who builds a $350 million football stadium on campus with like amenities and palm trees and open air concourses and year round bars and piers that lean over the football field? I mean, it's an amazing facility. It's spectacular. They're using it 365 days a year. I was there yesterday for the World Lacrosse Championships. I mean, it's providing more revenue possibilities at San Diego State than like Beaver Stadium at Penn State, which is used 7 days a year. This will be used 200 days a year. So it's interesting the revenue that's going to create for the university moving forward. And then in addition to that, academically, San Diego State is an emerging, growing university that matters to presidents. Obviously, it's one of the most applied to schools in the country. And then the geographic footprint, it works. The fact that they happen to be in Southern California when SC and UCLA are in the Big Ten, why would you leave the entire Southern California footprint just to the Big Ten? And I think the Big 12 and the Pac-12 recognize it. So I just think it's a product of time, and it's the right time for San Diego State. And I think while it still remains to be seen what happens, I think they're in a better spot than they've ever been.
Well, John, before I let you go, I know obviously I mentioned you host John and Jim at San Diego Sports 760, but for those that are interested in more San Diego State content, I'll just let you promote whatever it is you need to promote. If I believe you're getting involved in YouTube a little bit there, so just where can people find your work?
I'm glad you mentioned it because you literally reached out to me yesterday, which is the day I launched an Aztecs YouTube channel. I've done a Padres YouTube channel for a couple of years. I do radio work every single day on San Diego Sports 760. And I've been thinking about it for a year. I'm like, why am I not doing a San Diego State YouTube channel? And for whatever reason, I never got it off the ground. I launched it yesterday. If anyone wants to check it out, the Aztecs Wrap-Up Show on YouTube. You can just search for the Aztecs Wrap-Up Show on YouTube. We'll have year-round exclusive San Diego State coverage of San Diego State football and basketball. And of course, this time of year, this summer, could provide additional news off the court or off the field related to realignment. So yeah, I mean, I love covering San Diego State. It's been a passion covering San Diego, just sports in general with the Padres and the Aztecs. So if anyone has any more interest, you can find me on YouTube by searching for the Aztecs Wrap-Up Show.